than nothing.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Squat Cobbler. This is episode 49, and this is the first of the paranormal related episodes that's actually numbered. For anyone who doesn't know, we did a review of the first single, and we ran about 30 minutes for a 3-minute song. Then we did a two-part unnumbered special edition review of the paranormal album itself. But now we're going to give you our rankings and everything else you guys need to know about this so that we can complete our list up until this point of the Alice Cooper discography. I am Mike at Official Pagan on everything, and joining me on this very, very joyous, monumental occasion.
Hi, everybody. This is Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter. And it only took it 4 tries, but Paranormal gets a number, a Squat Cobbler number, finally.
It's crazy, yeah. Paranormal has gotten 4 Squat Cobblers now, and this is the first one with a number.
It's a bit of a bummer that because this wraps up, as of right now, all the Alice Cooper albums. Would have been really awesome to end on episode 50, but we're close, and we still got a few more Alice episodes left, so one of them will be a 50, I expect.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things that we didn't do in our paranormal review that we specifically saved for this point in time. One of those things is our ranking. We did give our Pat Boone songs, but we need the ranking. So do you just want to kick off with the ranking, or did you want to recap the album quickly?
I mean, I really would point folks back to we have talked at length about the single and the album and the bonus material, and so going back to those might be the best. I guess I did a re-listen coming into this because I knew we needed to do ranking. I remember having a very warm glow after listening to this before and really, really liking this album. That has not faded over time. They're holding up still very well. I thought maybe before we go into it, I'd still kind of hit a couple of my highlights of the whole thing. And for me, Dead Flies is a song I dearly love. I think it's pretty awesome. Rats on the kind of main album itself. So Dead Flies and Rats are two kind of standouts for me. And Genuine American Girls, just pretty awesome with the full band. Are there any big standouts for you, Mike?
Also, Dead Flies and Rats. Those are excellent, excellent songs. I really, though, most of this album is kind of equally good. Dead Flies and Rats really, really stand out. I do like the opening track, Paranormal, Paranoiac Personality. Once I got over the little Schools Out Bell thing in the beginning, which is a minor quibble, I really like that song. There's just so much on this I like. And there was only 2 songs that kind of dipped down for me, and they're not necessarily skips. And as we discussed in our review, Alice had done these track-by-track commentary videos for YouTube. And his commentary on those 2 tracks, they were Holy Water and The Sound of A, actually gave me a much better appreciation for those songs than I had initially listening to them, because they were both hovering on skips for me. But Sound of A was actually a unreleased Alice Cooper group song, and the first song that Alice himself took a prominent role in the writing of, that they reworked for this album. And Holy Water was going to be a religious rap song that Alice turned into more of like a funeral procession preacher type thing, and which I like a lot better than the religious rap song that I guess was originally pitched at some point. There was also a bonus disc to this album. Now, let me ask you something. When you're ranking, are you taking the bonus disc into consideration?
I am. I'm taking, I got to kind of view it as the whole package. Where it ends up on the list for me is carried entirely by the new material. I think the live material on there, it's a great band. They do a good job. These are great songs. So it can't hurt or harm the album's placement because it's out and it's some more live Alice stuff. But they really didn't, those songs did not influence where I placed it. It was, I made the decision on what were basically the 12 new tracks.
Okay, and that's more or less the same for me. I think the live tracks on here, while I don't think they're anywhere near the best Alice live material we've gotten, do make excellent, sort of added value to the album. One thing that is important to note is that this album, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for the album right now so that I can check out the track list again to see if there's anything I wanted to add to this. This album is 34 minutes and 11 seconds long. We've spent hours talking about this album now. Just on this podcast alone, we have spent many times the running time of this album discussing this album. And to me, that really shows how good this album is at its core.
Yeah, because it doesn't feel quick. I mean, there's so much there that you don't necessarily even notice that, which is interesting. And it still tried to piece it all together, but Overall, Billboard Top 200, while Welcome to My Nightmare, the sequel, ended up peaking at 22nd, and so far Paranormal has only peaked at 32nd on the overall Billboard Top 200. There were subset Billboard Top 200 charts that it actually reached number one on, which included the independent albums. So the top independent albums on Billboard, it reached number one. The top hard rock albums on Billboard, it reached number one. And on the top rock albums for Billboard, it reached number 6. So this one really was a strong return to the charts for Alice, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could definitely say, I don't know what it was up against at the time that it came out, but it was probably, do you know what the first week numbers were for this?
I don't.
I'd be curious to see if the actual numbers beat Welcome to My Nightmare.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. I don't know when the Grammy cycle goes and all that, where it's been a long time since Alice has been in a Grammy conversation, but this album deserves it.
I could definitely see that. If you were to single out a particular track on this for Grammy consideration, what would you like to see represented?
I'm sticking with my Dead Flies. So,
It is a great
Genuine
song.
American Girl's got a nice flavor to it too, because the original band's together.
Yeah, there's just so much on this you could pick out as being standout tracks. You have a lot of input from the original band. I just like so much of this. The only weird part, sort of, for me was that there isn't more. You get them on the live tracks, but there isn't more of his live band on this record.
Yeah, who are all incredibly talented musicians. Now he had some pretty good guests here who contributed. Billy Gibbons. I mean, there was some powerful guests on there that certainly were nice. But he's got his crew right now is an excellent group, and it's nice that they at least appear on the live stuff. A little surprising they weren't on the other stuff as well, but it was enlightening to re-listen to it particularly after going through Along Came a Spider and Welcome to My Nightmare, and then this one. In that, so if you recall back from our Welcome to My Nightmare review, expectations were incredibly high, and it was kind of hit and miss on some things for us there.
Listening back to that album, it really sounds, especially for me, it really sounds like I'm picking on it, I think, in the review. But that, for me, comes from the fact that the expectations of that were so high.
Yeah, and this one had high expectations and kind of met them, exceeded
Yeah.
them to a
And
degree.
yeah, and that's the thing. I think if you put these two up side by side, you have two albums with incredibly high expectations. One that just blows past anything that I could have expected. Another one that fell, for me, not that I disliked the album, but fell short.
Yeah, and Along Came a Spider, which we both love, and it's a great album. This goes toe to toe with it easily in a
Oh
much
yeah.
different way because of just the nature of these two. The two albums' natures are very different. The strength that you saw in Along Came a Spider makes its way into this as well in a different way, but in a very, very enjoyable way.
Here's an interesting question for you. We're about to get into the rankings and all that kind of stuff. So take these last few Alice albums because I feel like they're so different. The Long Came a Spider, you have, I would argue, the strongest Alice concept record in the sense of the concept being established and carried throughout the record. Like a really firm storyline that holds that thing together. You have Welcome to My Nightmare, which brings a lot of reunions for Alice. You get the Alice Cooper group brought back. He's with Bob Ezrin. You get some Desmond Child input. It almost feels like an album of reunions that only leads to higher expectations for a sequel album. And then you have this, which is something that's kind of starting from scratch, and it's got a lot of input from the Alice Cooper group. It's got some interesting guests on it. So out of those three, which would you say is your favorite before we even rank them?
This one, I'd say, of the three, it's kind of easy to put Spider in this one. As I'm going to order them, it's gonna come down to Along Came a Spider or this one, and I agree completely. I think From the Inside probably structurally held thematically about the same, but Spider did it better and stronger and in a more rocking way. And I'm a big From the Inside fan.
I love From the Inside. And in fact, one of the things, as we go through this list, we've discussed the possibility of albums changing position. And the one that's always on the verge of that for me is From the Inside. From the Inside and Killer, it was the hardest decision that I've made on this list because From the Inside, I love all the way through. However, I think it was poorly mixed and I have some minor quibbles with it. Whereas with Killer, I actually don't think Killer is as consistent an album all the way through as From the Inside, but From the Inside doesn't have the highs that Killer has. So that's a really difficult choice for me to make for those two. So to compare this to From the Inside, or to compare Long Game of Spider, I mean, to From the Inside, shows how strong that album is to me.
Yeah, so I'd probably go Paranormal, Long Came a Spider, and Welcome to My Nightmare. These three would be my order.
That would be the same for me. I think that this narrowly beats out Along Came a Spider, and I love Along Came a Spider. Along Came a Spider, though, in a lot of ways, also reminds me of From the Inside because it's a very consistent record, but doesn't necessarily hit quite the same highs as some other ones do. And this would be an example of that. Like there's nothing to me, there's not a song as strong as Dead Flies on Long Came a Spider.
Vengeance is Mine is no slouch.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and this is, boy, we're splitting hairs on this to try and make some distinctions.
And honestly, for anybody listening to this, part of this too, as I had told Kelly, but you guys obviously weren't privy to prior to our show, I'm still not sure 100% where I'm going to put this. So part of this is me working out where I'm putting this.
So you want me to go first?
100%. 100%. So Kelly, where would you rank this on your list?
Well, Long Came a Spider is number 6 on my list, and so we've already established it's going to be above that. It's going to be a top 5. And I looked through the list, I re-listened to it, and I thought about it, and we'll do this as we kind of wrap up the show. We'll talk about, there are a lot of parallels between Mike and my list. There's some pretty strong similarities. There's only a few albums where we have big differences on. And then there's, of course, the long-standing debate between number 1 and number 2. Slightly different order for the 2 lists on that. Same 2 albums, but different order and a healthy, well, it's not a healthy debate between the 2. There's kind of consistent backbiting on each of us on the 2 there. As much as I love Paranormal, it's not going to further complicate the 1 and 2 conversation. $1 Billion Babies and Love It to Death, $1 Billion Babies, depending which list you want to look at. But then the next 2 after that, for actually both Mike and I, also flipped. For Mike, it's Killer and From the Inside. And for me, it's From the Inside and Killer. Because much like Mike, I really, really love From the Inside. But going back and re-listening to this and almost having every song just be a hammer blow and be kind of just awesome in so many ways, I am actually going to place Paranormal as number 3 for me.
Wow.
Below Love It to Death and above From the Inside.
Very interesting. I didn't think top 3. Huh.
I didn't either until I went back because, you know, again, it's splitting hairs. So if the 3 albums under question are From the Inside, Killer, and Paranormal, it's not like there are differences of awesomeness. But when I kind of say track by track, so Killer is where it edges out Killer, and that track by track, there's Killer may have a couple slightly weaker tracks, and the Killer's highs aren't that much higher than Paranormal highs. And then From the Inside, well, I love that album. The mixing problem, a little bit of what you talk about in terms of there's a softening of the sound a little bit that is clearly not present on this album. And as much as I love From the Inside, I think Paranormal is a slightly better album.
So for me, looking at my list, my 1 and 2, the correct 1 and 2, Love It to Death, followed by $1 Billion Babies, is going to remain untouched. My number 6, which I believe is also Kelly's number 6, is Along Came a Spider. We've already established that I think this is a stronger record than that. So here's where it gets tough for me. My number 5 is Brutal Planet. I love that album. Love it. There is one huge skip, though, at the end for me. And I don't have that on this record. So as much as I absolutely love Brutal Planet and I will champion that album against all naysayers, I don't have a track on here that I dislike to the degree. And again, Holy Water's not great for me, but I don't have that huge skip that I have on Brutal Planet. So it's going to edge out Brutal Planet. So now we get into the From the Inside Killer thing. It doesn't have anything. I love a lot of this record. I don't know that it has an Under My Wheels on it, though. And my problems with From the Inside have a lot more to do with production than the album itself. So this is really, really hard for me. But I think I'm going to have to go number 5. I don't know that it cracks that From the Inside Killer barrier for me. I do love it. And if you had told me going into this that this was going to be a top 5 album, I would have laughed.
Yeah, when we started, I mean, once it came out, it seemed, while we both liked it, to say, well, yeah, it's really good. It's really good, but is it going to be a top 5? And, you know, top 5 Alice Cooper albums is a pretty tough nut to crack when you get into those. into those spaces. I just kind of went back and forth a little bit between saying, this is, they're all awesome, but the re-listen really is what kind of sold me on it. When the kind of joy I felt on nearly every song starting off, and kind of starting to remember, oh yeah, this is where this is going to go. This is a great album. So there you go, sitting at number 3 on mine, number 5 on Mike's. That completes the ranking of 27 original Alice Cooper works. It only took us like a year and a half to do it. So
it would have been much longer, but we switched for a while there. For anyone who isn't familiar, we were doing our original recommendation format and alternating between Alice reviews and that. And along the line, we decided to focus more prominently on the Alice reviews. So could have taken a lot longer to get the reviews.
Yeah, I think if we had kept at the original pacing, we'd have been pretty deep into 18 before we would have gotten to this point. And we got a few more things to say, because we are going to kind of come back and talk. We've mentioned this on many shows. Playlist, 15 songs, Alice Cooper playlist. So we'll be exchanging notes on there. I think much like our list, there's going to be some common ground and some differing ground. I clearly know one song that's on mine that will not be on Mike's.
See, I actually think while our lists are fairly in line, there is a few divergences here and there. I actually think our playlists are going to be dramatically different.
I think it's a possibility. Well, I certainly know. I know that I have at least 2 songs included that I'm highly confident, being the big Homo sapiens no baloney fan that I am, that that'll be at the top of the list for me, and not on Mike's anywhere. But there'll be a couple that'll be different, I'm sure. But yeah, that's gonna be fun to do. What I will try and do, maybe for that show or one of the ones coming up, I'll do a little bit of further analysis to kind of do a compare and contrast on a list, so that we can have some conversation about where did we really differ the most, which album did we have the biggest difference of opinion on. And I did this I just for fun. This is a sad life that I lead. I did this for fun a few probably about 4 reviews ago, just to kind of level set. And there's a lot of closeness to the rankings, lots of differences of 1 and 2. But surprisingly, there were a few that there was a pretty big difference on. And so we'll get through that too a little bit and see what insights we have when we kind of look at some of those numbers.
I'm going to say, without delving too deeply into looking at our list right now, I'm assuming Raise Your Fist and Yell might be one of the biggest divergences, right?
Looking at it again, let's see here. We can take a quick pick. Actually, not as much as you would think, because there's really only about 4 positions of difference between Raise Your Fist and Yell, between your ranking and my ranking. There's another album, though, that actually surprised me when we went through, that has a much larger gap. But
which album is that?
Special Forces.
Oh.
7 positions of difference there. But now we've got all the numbers. We'll go through and we'll see where it all comes out. But yeah, actually, Raise Your Fist and Yell, that's what I've totally expected too, that there'd be this huge difference. But that didn't rocket up to the top of your list. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's not like I was praising that album. I just didn't have the blind hatred for it that you did.
But there'll be a few that also are dead hits, dead matches. Along Came a Spider, even after this ranking here, will be occupying the exact same spot on both of our lists. So we'll see how all that goes. So I think this is possibly our shortest show related to paranormal.
It is the 4th podcast that we've done.
I guess even on average, it's probably longer than most. But and all we did was a ranking, so it's still going to be a 30-minute show or something.
I was going to say, I would venture to say we're still going to wind up somewhere around the runtime of the album.
Yeah, I think that seems
ranking
to be our want. This as is. So more Alice stuff coming up in kind of a wrap-up kind of way. We're going to talk about the playlists. We're going to do a kind of one-show quick rank of the live albums. We're going to talk about album cover art. Yeah, I think that'll be pretty much it. We're playing around with where we go next, because this format seems to have worked out really well. We may go to a different artist and we're going to do an entire catalog of anyone else, but we may hone in on a few there. Or the other thing that Mike and I have been talking about is kind of doing a music prisoner exchange, where I bring forward an album that I'm super passionate about, that there's a pretty good chance that Mike's not familiar with, and give him time to become familiar with it. And then we go track by track on it, and then flip the coin and do the same the other way around. So we're sorting through what'll kind of happen next there. And then we'll decide if we're going to do anything with Hollywood Vampires stuff. since there's going to be another Hollywood Vampires album coming out probably this year. So we'll sort that. We may give them time to get 2 albums out before we mess with them.
Yeah, I think that seems fair. Because at least with 2 albums, it gives you something to compare and contrast.
It's been a fun ride. We got a few more stops to take, but really appreciate those of you who have been listening. The YouTube channel that we put these out on, lightly and lovingly edited, has continued to pick up subscribers and regular listeners. So we thank you. We thank you for that.
And who would you guys like to see us review if we were going to continue with the album review format? Who would you like to hear us talk about?
Yeah, that would be great. And we've had a couple folks that have been consistent listeners and consistent commenters on a lot of things and catching things that we missed. And somebody sorted out where you could find the bonus track, the fake news stuff that Alice did for Hey Stupid. So there's a bunch of folks out there that have been done a bunch of cool stuff. So we'd love to hear kind of you're listening and you've apparently enjoyed or hate listened to what we've done. And so whichever that might be, if you've got a place you'd like us to go next, would love to hear that. We got some ideas and a few artists, but very open to hearing what other folks have to say, and we'll play around a little bit.
Absolutely. And speaking just for myself, give us something weird. I want to hear something I've never heard before, especially if you guys are throwing it at us. Don't just give us something that we like or seems within our wheelhouse. I would really like to be exposed to something new.
That would actually be cool to basically get commissioned to do a track by track review of something we've got no clue on at all, and put us into listen, get us to have to listen to it and pay attention to it and understand it, and then come back and do this format for it. Possibly carry forward the Pat Boone methodology and assign a song to Pat Boone from the album. But that would actually be kind of fun, particularly if people are throwing stuff out that can kind of push us into, because I'm always open to kind of hearing new stuff.
Yeah, I think that could be really cool. So the ball's in your court, guys, and we're still going to choose some too. And I love the prisoner exchange thing with Kelly, because I have a lot of stuff that I listen to that I know very few other people listen to. So it would be kind of cool to expose somebody else to that and just get their honest feedback, and not even stuff that I would be trying to shock Kelly with or anything like that, but just the kind of stuff that I'm genuinely interested to hear your opinion on.
Yeah, and I don't think I got the numbers on Mike on this, but I've got a few in reserve here that I'm trying to figure out if it'd be fair play to trot out Trout Mass Replica or not. I think that might be that would be a multi-hour show, because that's a big old album, a lot of stuff going on Trout Mask.
When you'll feel good about doing it the first time I give you some 4-hour noise album to listen to. So
yeah, I'll keep that one in reserve. And if you hate bad, it's okay. It's Trout Mass Replica next time, and I don't have to listen to it because I've been through it a ton. All right, folks. Well, there you go. 27 Alice Cooper albums, 28, 29-ish reviews. Rankings, Pat Boone songs, and then we'll do some wrap up over the next couple shows. And really appreciate those of you who have joined us for this ride. It's been really fun, and it's been really fun to revisit all of these albums. Some a little more fun than others, but fun to revisit all of them. I really do appreciate the folks listening. So thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right, I'm going to stop the broadcast.